This is Dustin Guinee, and you've reached session 24 of Open Minds, Open Hearts, Embracing Change and Impermanence. Thank you for joining me for this session. If you're going through any difficult challenges right now in your life, if you are dealing with the loss of a job, a loss of relationship, or loss of a loved one, I think the information in this session and the guided meditation will certainly resonate with you. But first, in case you missed the last session, session 23, Grateful Now, that is up on my website, openmindsopenhearts.org. And in that session, we talked about gratitude and gratitude journaling. I led the group through a gratitude meditation. So certainly, if you're looking for more thankfulness in your life and need to count your blessings, highly recommend checking that one out. And also, these sessions are free, but if you'd like to donate, please do so. It helps keep the show going, keep the websites and technologies running. And you can do that at openmindsopenhearts.org/donate. So let's go ahead and get started by setting an intention for today's session. So some examples of setting an intention for change and impermanence could be: my intention is to accept the rising and passing of my thoughts and emotions. My intention is to let go of how I think things should be and accept them for how they are. My intention is to embrace my challenges as opportunities for growth. So go ahead and take a moment to reflect on your intentions for change, for managing impermanence, embracing and accepting the constant change in our lives. And usually what comes first to your intuition is the right path, so we will go with that. So I did want to share a few quotes with you. So the first quote is from Heraclitus, who is an ancient Greek philosopher. And he said, "No man ever steps in the same river twice, for it's not the same river, and he's not the same man." Or the same woman. It can work either way. But I do love this quote because this idea of the river of life constantly changing and ourselves changing as well. You know, where even though we could be going through very similar routines day over day and things feel like they're not changing, they certainly are changing. You know, we're getting older every day. The world around us is changing minute by minute, day by day. So the river of life is changing. We're changing. And we can't experience the same moment twice. So each moment becomes very precious when you think of this constant change. And we really have to seize the day, carpe diem, live in the moment, in each moment. So this next quote is from Dan Harris, who is a journalist, also the author of 10% Happier. He's written quite a few books around the theme of mindfulness meditation, which is unique because he's more of an East Coast journalist as opposed to your typical meditation teacher. But he says the route of true happiness, the Buddha argued, was to achieve a visceral understanding of impermanence, which would take you off the emotional roller coaster and allow you to see your dramas and desires through a wider lens. Meditation was the prescription. Facing the voice in your head mindfully The only way out is through. So I do love this a lot. This idea of the emotional roller coaster that we're all on. I think many of us can relate to that. There are dramas in our lives that we often get sucked up into. It feels like we're in a roller coaster. And so meditation ultimately is the medicine, it's the prescription. And facing that voice in our heads mindfully, so bringing awareness to that voice in our heads. This is where true happiness lies, where we're not escaping our suffering, we're working through it. The only way out is through, right? So we're accepting any suffering, any impermanence that we're experiencing, and we're just being with that. And we don't necessarily have to be on the emotional roller coaster, but we can be with the emotions without being on the roller coaster. So really, really resonate with this quote. And then finally, the Buddha says, change is never painful. Only resistance to change is painful. And that just about says it, right? Change is never painful. I mean, at first glance, that seems a little hard to accept, right? Change is never painful. I mean, sometimes change can be very painful, especially if you get hurt physically, if you're in a car accident, a loved one passes away. The change feels very painful. But the Buddha is saying it's really the resistance to the change that is painful. And that's also really true too. It's when we're in those states of pain, we don't fully want to accept that we're in that state. We often go into our denial, denying that we're in that state of suffering. We try to brush it under the rug, hope it'll go away. And it doesn't go away. And in fact, it generally gets bigger and festers when we try and brush it under the rug. So, that resistance to change it's a real tricky one, but it is the key to unwinding our suffering, acknowledging where we're at, and being our true, authentic selves. So, very powerful message from the Buddha. Before we do get into our guided meditation, I did want to share a few other thoughts with you, particularly around negativity bias. So not sure if you've heard this term before, but essentially negativity bias, it is the part of our brain that defaults to negative information and prioritizing negative information over neutral or positive information. There's been quite a bit of research around negativity bias, and it has been shown that in general, in these studies, negative information seems to require greater information processing. It requires more activity in the mind, more emphasis, more memory allocation to negative thoughts and emotions. And when you think about it, it does make sense from an evolutionary perspective, right? You think about the ancient cavemen and women running from a saber-toothed tiger not to get eaten, right? Clearly, you need to escape the saber-toothed tiger. That's number one. But then number two, after you've found safety, you want to avoid running into another saber-toothed tiger at all costs, right? So the mind starts to program that negative information because you've nearly lost your life. So it's it's emphasizing that information for your own survival, right? And so the human mind has evolved like that through thousands of years. And so it's no wonder that negative information tends to take up more bandwidth in our brains. Now, of course, the problem in our modern society is rather than saber-toothed tigers, we are running from emails and text messages and meetings and work obligations and all the stresses that come from modern life. So for the most part, these stresses are not putting our lives in danger, but often in our brain, it feels that way. It feels like we're fighting for survival, and our body's getting pumped full of stress hormones like cortisol. So this negativity bias, it certainly is a function of the brain that most of us have, but we also need to get to a place where we start to question that negativity bias. And maybe we don't need to put so much emphasis on it after all, especially in those situations where maybe the outcome, it seems negative at first, but maybe it's actually not as bad as we think. Maybe it really is a growth opportunity for us to change, evolve, and adapt and become stronger. So how do we do that? How do we move from the negativity bias into a more mindful way of being? So a few tips around how mindfulness can help us can help us adapt to difficult changes. Okay, so number one, you are not your thoughts, right? Like we often get so absorbed in our thoughts. We identify with our thoughts. Every little thought that comes up, we put so much emphasis on it, especially the negative ones, right? Because we know that because negativity bias, right? But sometimes those thoughts are misleading. Sometimes our mind is not our friend, and it's leading us down very dark avenues and alleyways that we don't want to be in. We can return to the happy path. And so we do that through meditation and mindfulness practice. Which brings me to tip number 2, learn to be in the present moment. And this is another one. We spend much of our time either dwelling in the past or projecting into the future. But how much time do we actually spend being fully present in this moment right now? It's hard, right? But the breath is one of the most effective tools to tap us into the present moment. So in meditation, we focus on our breath, but also throughout your day, you can come back to your breath. So when things start to get hard, when you're starting to get faced with tough challenges, just take a deep breath. Just stop for a minute and take a deep breath. And you'll start to see when that oxygen comes into the system, you start to feel more relaxed again. That fight, flight, or freeze part of the brain goes offline and the prefrontal cortex comes back online. So it's extremely effective to come back to the breath and come back to the present moment. The other tip number 3, is accept what is with non-judgmental awareness. Accept the present moment with non-judgmental awareness. You know, we have that negativity bias. We often want to judge every little situation. We want to judge ourselves and our shortcomings and why we didn't do something right. We want to judge somebody else, our coworkers, because of their faults and what they didn't do right. We judge our partners. We judge our kids. We do a lot of judging. We stand on this kind of moral high ground, when in reality, it's often coming from a lack of self-esteem, a lack of awareness. Usually that judging is not coming from a very good place. So what if we just stop judging? What if what seemed to be a bad situation, what if we just took that label off and didn't call it bad or good, but we just called it a situation? How might that reframe the situation, right? Losing a job can be very difficult. I know because last year I went through losing a job and I spent many months looking for a new job. And it's tough, especially when you have a family and kids and a mortgage and all these kinds of things. I know that for me, it would have been very easy to fall into judging my former employer, judging the circumstances, judging COVID-19 for largely being the reason why I lost the job. So there's a lot of negative things I could be focused on, but ultimately that wasn't my focus because I knew that wasn't going to serve me. So it was less about seeing my situation as a bad situation and trying to reframe it into, okay, what is the growth opportunity here? And it took many months and there was a lot of challenges and a lot of growing. But I ultimately did land another job that I'm pretty happy with. So, you just gotta flow with that river of life sometimes and start to see those growth opportunities, even in the midst of what seems like a big challenge or tragedy. And then finally, practice compassion for yourself and others. So, this is, again, something else that we often don't do, especially for ourselves. We're often very critical of ourselves, back to the judgment, back to the negativity bias, right? So, compassion for ourselves, this is where it starts. If we can show compassion for ourselves, it's so much easier to be compassionate to others, right? Because we're filling our cup first. So compassion, loving kindness, patience, empathy, these are all virtues that we cultivate when we mindfully become aware of where we're at, where others are at, and just being patient and giving things time to grow and develop, particularly when things are hard. So I hope that provides you some food for thought. And now let's go ahead and get into our guided meditation. Let's begin. Hello and welcome. This is Dustin Guinee, and I'll be your guide on today's meditation on embracing change and impermanence. This meditation is good for anyone that's facing challenging changes in their lives, whether it's the loss of a job, a relationship, or a loved one. This meditation is here to soothe and calm your mind, to recognize and allow and accept the current situation for what it is, to be fully present in this moment without judgment. And through that, we find compassion for ourselves and others. So let's go ahead and get started with a few deep breaths. Deep breath in through the nose, filling up the diaphragm, and release. Releasing through the mouth, letting that air out. And deep breath in through the nose, filling up the diaphragm, and release. Releasing through the mouth. And deep breath in. And release. Okay, now on this fourth breath, we're going to try something a little different. I want you to inhale, and then I want you to hold your breath. And just keep holding it until I tell you to let go. All right, so deep breath in. And hold. And just hold on to that breath. Do not let go. Just hold on to that breath. Don't let it go. Don't release the breath. Hold on. Don't change. Don't move. And you may be feeling like you really need to take a breath right now. So go ahead and let that air out. Take another breath. And how did that feel? I wasn't trying to mess with you, but I was trying to show you that when you hold on to your breath like that, it doesn't feel that good, does it? No, it doesn't. Because why? Because the nature of the breath is we take an inhale in and an exhale out. Right? There's a give and there is a letting go. And when you can't let that air go, what happens? That carbon dioxide starts filling your body, your body, your lungs start calling out for that oxygen. Maybe you even feel like you're suffocating or dying even, right? Because the breath, we need to exhale. We can't just hold on. But what do we do with our thoughts and emotions? We hold on. We don't let go. Okay, so this meditation is an opportunity for us to recognize what is changing in our lives and what do we need to let go of. What do we need to accept and ultimately exhale and let go so that we can inhale that fresh air once again, not holding on to the last breath, not holding on to the last memory, the last thought, the last feeling. Those are in the past. Those are gone now. What's happening right now? That's what we're tapping into. The present moment. So, fear, the doubt, the worry, aversion, we all experience these things. And we often create complex narratives around these negative thoughts and emotions. And I invite you to put the narratives on the shelf. Perhaps those narratives aren't true to begin with. Perhaps the mind is misleading us down the wrong path, telling us that things are much worse than they actually are. So we quiet the mind, and we quiet those narratives. And as we sit in stillness, we allow what is coming up for us to be present. And I'm sure that there's change in your life. And whether it's big or small, whether it's difficult or just a minor challenge, where are you at with that change? It's okay if there's some fear, doubt, worry. there's some suffering. That's human. That's the human experience, especially with challenging changes. But we want to bring those moments, those thoughts, and hold them in non-judgmental awareness. So we're not judging ourselves, we're not judging others. Are there things that could have been done differently? Sure. Woulda, coulda, shoulda. All those things are in the past now. All we have now is this present moment. How do we want to be in this moment? How do we want to change? Every breath is a new beginning, an opportunity to begin again. How are you going to write your next chapter? Because it starts right here. It starts getting in touch with your true, authentic self. Not the chatter of the mind, not the fear, the doubt, the worry. Not that external forces telling you what you should, what you could do. What is your intuition telling you? When you align your head and your heart, what is that voice telling you? The Buddha says, change is never painful. Only resistance to change is painful. It's the resistance that creates the pain. But what if we reframed that challenging situation? What if it wasn't bad at all? What if our current challenge that we're facing is a growth opportunity, providing new lessons and perspectives, making us stronger, developing grit and endurance to make it through the long haul of life. Change is constant. The natural world is in a constant state of creation and deterioration. People live and people die. All life on the planet has a beginning and an end. So why do we fight it so much? We cherish the beginning, and yet we dread the end. Why? Why do we resist the end? Perhaps many of us feel like the end doesn't begin again. Or perhaps the end, just like that breath, just like that exhale, will begin again with another breath, another life, another beginning. So whatever you believe, you don't want to resist the end, whether that is a job, relationship, or life itself. Yes, that can be a difficult concept to grasp, but ultimately that is the greatest fear, is the end of life. So if we can come to terms with that impermanence, if we can accept that change, it can be profoundly liberating and freeing. Because then we know each day is a blessing, an opportunity for growth. Be grateful for what we do have. So, this light of loving awareness that shines on all of us, if we're not our thoughts, then what are we? Are we the awareness behind the thoughts, the watcher behind the feelings? The light of awareness, much like the sun shining down on the planet, on Earth, providing life to every living organism. Much like this light of the sun, it never ceases. This light of awareness is always available to us, always shining. Even in the dark of night, when we feel like there is no light of awareness, it's always there. It's just we've turned our back to it. The darkness does not possess a special power. It's simply the absence of this light of awareness. So what is your light of awareness telling you? What is my light of awareness telling me? So, the Buddha has these teachings called the Five Remembrances. And these teachings are very powerful, particularly when it comes to embracing change and impermanence. And as I say these Five Remembrances, I'd like you to repeat them either out loud or in your head. So the first remembrance is, I am sure to become old. I cannot avoid aging. I am sure to become ill. I cannot avoid illness. I am sure to die. I cannot avoid death. One day I will be separated from all that is dear to me. And that could be things, people, places, pets. One day I'll be separated from all that is dear to me. And finally, I am the owner of my actions. And these actions could be good, bad, they could be virtuous, or they could be arrogance and ignorance. But these actions, these choices, this we own, our free will. We can choose how we respond to these difficult situations. So let us make a vow that through compassion and loving kindness for ourselves and others, show a little bit more patience, a little bit more empathy for ourselves when we're struggling, for other people when they're struggling. Let's practice a little bit more non-judgmental awareness for these difficult waters that we're all navigating, this river of life that we're all floating down, grappling with rapids and currents. So there's no other teacher that I think exemplifies adaptation to difficult changes more than Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl is a Jewish Austrian psychologist who survived the Nazi internment camps, including Auschwitz. He watched his family and friends die before his eyes in the gas chambers and experienced horrific circumstances in these concentration camps. Ultimately, his background in medicine allowed him to serve the other prisoners, and he became favored among the guards for his service to others, his selfless service in the face of such oppression. His attitude was different. He did not accept that death was right around the corner. He lived every moment, even in those concentration camps, with great intention to serve and help others. And ultimately, that allowed him to survive. So, you can read more about it in his book, Man's Search for Meaning. I highly recommend it. In that book, Dr. Viktor Frankl says, everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. So you have the power to respond how you choose. You have the power to reframe your attitude, even in the most challenging situations. And I'd like to end with a poem that I've written for my family and my cousin who just lost his mother, my aunt, a few weeks ago in a horrible car accident. I wrote this poem dedicated to him, my cousin. It's called Not Broken. Dear one you have lost, what you hold so dear. I send my sympathies, so wholeness becomes clear. Feeling alone and broken from this tragedy and loss. But after the storm of suffering, to hold on, there is a cost. To let go, it seems too soon, but when will I accept that the only constant is change? I must let go of every breath. So why do I hold on to the way things were, afraid of all the changes, uncertain and unsure? I reminisce about the friends and family that are gone, but in my heart they're still alive. Their spirits carry on. My angels watching out for me, I remember them in prayer. Honor their lives by staying present and aware to this miracle of life that unfolds every day. Cherish each moment before our time passes away. My time on earth is short. I have to make it count. The love I share with others, greater than my bank account. Chasing down dollars while my life passes me by. When I'm still in this moment, awareness will never die. Indestructible energy that transforms over time, not married to the form. Here I am divine. I am whole right now. Through clouds of suffering, block the sun. Give it time. Light rays break through. A new day has begun. Take your time to grieve. Wholly feel your pain. Lessons in the downpour to get up and try again. I will be here for you whenever you need someone. Your angels watching over you. Know that we are one. You are not broken. You are human. And I love you. The light in me bows to the light in you. Namaste. Hey there, friend. If you enjoyed that session and would like to join me in real time, then go to openmindsopenhearts.org and sign up for my free classes the first and third Wednesday of each month at 5 p.m. Pacific time. I'd love to meet you in person via Zoom online for these sessions. Also, on my website, you can find past guided meditations. You can find my training sessions where I go deeper into the science and mindfulness practices around this content. You'll find my poetry for meditation, original music, and a variety of other resources to guide you on your meditation and mindfulness practice. So go to openmindsopenhearts.org, sign up, and I hope to see you at the next session.